homeschoolers. I'm Heather. Welcome to another Homeschool Live presented by the Old Schoolhouse. Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today I will be interviewing Dr. Rebecca Woodbury of Real Science-4-Kids, who will be sharing about a brand new science program that she just launched called Ratataz. And both of us would really appreciate it if you could just take a minute right now and share this video so we can get it out there to the homeschool community. Also, please feel free to comment, like, and ask questions throughout the interview. And now I'm looking forward to introducing you to Dr. Woodbury, formerly known as Dr. Keller. And she earned a PhD in biophysical chemistry from the University of New Mexico. For years, she worked in the areas of biophysics, molecular biology, and neuroscience. She also spent 14 years homeschooling her 3 children in their Albuquerque, New Mexico home. Dr. Woodbury founded Gravitas Publications, which you may be familiar with, in 2003, and authored the hugely popular Real Science-4-Kids homeschool science curriculum. But she hasn't stopped there. For 2 decades of research into how children learn, Dr. Woodbury has created a brand new program designed specifically to help students learn and think with a scientific mind. This is called Ratataz. It is a method that she's going to share with us today. And this revolutionary program just launched March 8th. And she's very excited to introduce this program to you. Welcome, Dr. Woodbury.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
We are just so excited to hear about this Ratataz program. Can you explain what Ratataz is?
Yes. So Ratataz, it's actually the synthesis of everything I've been trying to figure out for the last 20 years. So, you know, I've developed a science curriculum, the Real Science-4-Kids program. And that was an effort to get kids exposed to real science, real chemistry, real physics, real biology. But the last decade or so, I've been really trying to figure out, you know, not just how do you introduce kids to good, solid science content, but how do you actually get them to learn it? So teaching somebody some topic or content is actually different than getting them to learn it. So over the last years, I've been just researching how do people learn? What are the elements of, you know, exposure, absorption, understanding, and what is the process for that? And so Ratataz is the synthesis of all of this research I've been doing for the last, well, 20 years even. And so Ratataz stands for read, ask, test, answer, and tazzle, which is talk, tell, and dazzle. So the idea behind Ratataz is to read a little bit about a topic and then ask your own questions. So the student asks their own questions about that topic. It can be a silly question, can be a serious question, doesn't matter the kind of question, whatever question they have. And then they test. They learn a little bit about science. So that's what the subscription kit is going to teach them, a little bit about how to use tools, you know, the scientific method, how to make good observations, how to record data. So each one of these boxes is going to be focused on one aspect of good science methodology. Then they try to answer their own question. And that's where, to me, it gets really exciting, because if you have a child asking and answering their own question, if they're answering their own question, they're interested in it. And this can take any form. And then the tazzle is talk, tell, and dazzle. And that means they get to share it with the world. One of the great things about making new discoveries is sharing it with others, right? So even me sharing the Ratataz program, it's like I'm super excited about this program and I'm really excited to share it. So, and you learn how to present. Student will learn how to present their information. They'll learn a little bit more about, you know, their topic. So Ratataz is really, it's more of a method. You can Ratataz anything. And so my goal through the Ratataz subscription boxes is to teach kids how to Ratataz. So we're going to Ratataz science in the boxes, but I want them to take this tool and apply it to any subject, any program, any book, any curriculum they're using.
So Ratataz is a method, but you are now offering, in addition to the books you already sell, a subscription. Can you explain more about the subscription boxes? Because this sounds so fun.
Yeah, so I have one of the boxes that I modified, and I'll explain a little bit about that too. So this is what the subscription boxes look like. They come in a box, something like this. And then inside the box, there's going to be a lot of, the materials for each box will, like the first one is what is chemistry. So there'll be a reader, there'll be a little set of lab pages, and then all the equipment they need for the experiment.
Oh, wow. So everything's right there. You don't need to go out and buy anything. You have what you need.
Yeah, they're the only things that we can't ship are like isopropyl alcohol.
Okay.
We will be shipping a little bit of distilled water with some of the experiments because like for the pH experiments, we want to make sure parents use distilled water. So we have little bottles of distilled water you'll get. But yeah, everything will be contained in the box. And then in addition to the box and all the materials, I'm doing video tutorials. So there's going to be a card at the very top of the box. And there'll be a QR code. You click on that QR code, you go straight to the video. And it's me. And I am reading the reader. We read the reader first, and I get them to help get them started asking their own questions. So one of the challenges we've discovered is that because kids don't often ask their own questions, they more answer other people's questions. Yeah. It's going to be a little challenging to get them back to asking their own questions. So we practice asking questions about the textbook. And then I walk them through the laboratory experiment, whatever that is. And then the last part is answering their own question. And I actually ask and answer my own question. So this box, for example, is a box that I modified because one of the things we're trying to do is get kids to break the box. So what does that mean? I want them to break outside. It's more than just outside, thinking outside the box. It's actually breaking the box. And so I converted this into a little easel. So that I could use my own watercolor paints. That my question was, can I make my own watercolor paints? And so I turned this into a little easel as I made my own watercolor paints out of soils. So because I didn't know if I could make my own watercolor paints, and I found some really cool resources. And so at the end of each video, there's going to be Dr. Woodbury breaks the box section. And that's where I'm going to go and say, okay, this is my question. Can I make my own watercolor paint? Or, how many pieces of pie can ants carry? Or whatever it is that my question is, right? And then I'm just going to record how I did that. And the whole idea is to encourage kids to ask their own questions, be comfortable asking their own questions, and then learning some science, absolutely, learning some content. All the boxes are sequenced for parents, so you don't have to worry about which box to start with. We sequence it for you. Okay. And then getting them to answer their own questions. And it could be a chemistry-related question. It doesn't have to be. It could be a history question. It doesn't matter. They're ratatazing. They're ratatazing the subject. And then the final part is sharing that on social media. So making a video or presenting.
Oh, the kids will love that.
Yeah. And we're also introducing an award. So one of the things we want everybody to sign up for is like, okay, you don't have to purchase our product for this, but we're offering a Ratataz award. And I believe we've got it set up like the top award is for $1,000, $500.
Oh, wow.
And the idea is that they submit their project, whatever it is. It has to be an original question that they've asked.
Wow, just a question they come up with. This isn't something you don't have like a list of things. You pick one, like in school, you pick what you want to study for your book report. Right. You want them to think this up on their own.
It's outside the whole science fair, idea. It's and they can present it any way they want. Like we had a girl, we did a little challenge this summer. We did this sort of testing this method, and she was very much into the Mars rover. So she presented, her presentation was interpretive dance about the Mars rover. But in order to get there, she had to explain a lot about the Mars rover. And she did a phenomenal job. And so we had one kid produce a bunch of, puppet shows. We had another kid who just did lectures. He was phenomenal. You had a whiteboard and you just wrote everything out. So it's however they want to present it, it's their question, their answer, and their presentation. And so we want to collect a bunch of those. And once a year, we'll select a few winners to get kids ratatazing. So
we have our first question. What do you advise parents to do if they don't know how to answer the questions their kids are asking? In other words, what if we're lost?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. And the answer is you don't answer it for them. What you do is you just be honest. I don't have the answers to that question. Let's go on a question quest. Let's go figure out that question together. So I don't want parents, in fact, I'm advising parents to be more like a graduate, advisor, right? A graduate advisor, you come to the advisor with your questions and they just sit back and go, yeah, how would you answer that? Now, parents with small children need to do a little bit more support. So go online. Hey, how is the moon made of green cheese? Well, maybe you even know the answer to that question, but maybe you want to just let them explore it. Well, let's go find out. So that would be my approach. Go find out. Now, it does take a little bit more effort and a little bit more time because, your kids hopefully are going to be peppering you with lots of questions. Yeah. So spend 30 minutes, help them maybe narrow it down to one or two. In the program, we help them narrow it down to one question they're most interested in. That's the question I want answered. Yeah. But don't answer the rest of their questions. Let them, go on a question quest for whatever answer they come up with. And then how do you know if it's right? Well, there's going to be some questions that have a right or wrong, right? I mean, 2 + 2 is 4, at least in base 10, right? So there's going to be some questions that, you're going to be able to say, yes, this is, we've hit on what we would feel like is the accurate answer for this question. But science isn't just about right and wrong. You learn through the discovery of trying to answer different questions. And I wouldn't worry about whether it's right or wrong at this point. If you use good sources, you pursue the question earnestly, you're going to come up with an answer that is probably going to be, as close to right as, some questions can't be answered, in fact, right? Like, so I wouldn't worry about that so much.
Yeah, and the information's available. So you're just encouraging the children to find it.
It is about pursuing the answers on their own. And to be honest, this is challenging, not just for kids, but for parents, because we're used to this passive learning approach where a textbook publisher gives you a list of questions that I think are interesting and, needed to learn a subject. And then you expect the kids to answer them. And then the parent has an answer sheet, right? To know if those answers are correct. Yeah. But here's the tricky part. Kids don't actually learn very much that way. They may learn how to regurgitate information on an exam, but that's what I discovered in 10 years of research is, one of the things I want to share with you, a resource for parents, is this book by the Right Question Institute. And it's called Make Just One Change. And this is a really good resource for understanding why it's important for students to ask and answer their own questions and not worry so much about whether or not you're finding a right or wrong answer. Yeah. So I would relax around worrying about answering their questions and whether or not the answer is correct.
And it's interesting. So as you're talking, it just makes me think about how I've been approaching chemistry with my older kids who are starting to become teenagers. And I tried to move away from the typical textbook way of doing it. And I was like, okay, they need to know about the periodic table. But I don't want to just go on YouTube, find the periodic table, be like, okay, memorize all these elements. And then it's like, what are they going to do with that? Right. So we took a completely different approach. And we found this awesome book where it had an actual picture of each element. And then it just talked about it in everyday life. And they weren't memorizing the table. Right. But it caused them to ask questions. Of course, the scary one was, hey, Mom, can I get sodium off of the internet? Apparently, we take sodium in water. It's not safe, which I didn't know. I learned a lot.
Yeah. Well, and even at the periodic table, you go out there and we have this one visual of the standard periodic table. But if you go do a little research, there's all different kinds of periodic tables out there. There's one that's circular. So one of the questions is, why is the periodic table set up the way it is? Okay. Are there other tables? And there's a whole bunch of, so it can go in any direction. You can study different elements, or you could study different kinds of tables, or who invented the periodic table, or, the history of it. Yeah. I mean, and that's the cool thing about letting kids ask and answer their own questions, is because if they do that, they're interested. Yeah. It's their question. And then the answer is going to, it actually gets in more than just regurgitating information on an exam.
Yeah, so it allows for like the delight-directed method of homeschooling, where kids can, pursue what is exciting to them. But I laugh about the periodic table because I'm like, I did not know that new elements were being discovered recently, and so it makes me think like using this method and just breaking outside the box, using the box, whatever it. I mean, our kids could find new elements that we didn't even know existed,
Yeah,
and
exactly. And that's really kind of the point, is that, globally we face a lot of problems, right? And, I think it was Albert Einstein that said, we can't solve the problems we have today with the same kind of thinking that got us here. We need different kind of thinking, right? We need kids who can connect the dots that no one else right now can see.
right.
Well, how do you get there? How do you get a kid who's like comfortable, looking for dots and connections that no one else can see, that are scientifically grounded, they're grounded in reality? Well, you get them thinking, you break the box. You have to use an approach that encourages them to make their own discoveries. And initially, could be a silly question, right? Albert Einstein is said to have asked the question when he was 16, what would it be like to ride on a rainbow? Well, to a physicist, that's a silly question. Number one, you're too big to ride on a rainbow. And number two, rainbows aren't going anywhere. So how are you going to ride it? But to Albert Einstein, this was like an amazing kind of question to get him thinking about the properties of light, the properties of waves, or whatever, wherever his mind went. And we all know, he discovered all kinds of great things. And so I think not worrying about what kind of questions somebody is asking. This is a problem, right? Like, we think we have to ask a science question or a serious question or a good question. We don't want to ask a bad question, and it limits our ability to think creatively to break the box, right?
Yeah.
And that's what that's probably one of the biggest pieces of the Ratataz method, is really understanding that getting kids to ask and answer their own questions is one of the things that we've gotten away from, in our educational, methods, right? Even homeschoolers, they're like tests, and we got to hop through the hoops to get into the next level or to the college or whatever. But it doesn't encourage kids to make those new discoveries. And we need that. We need the next generation. That's why our purpose for Ratataz is to empower kids to become tomorrow's change makers. That's what we're about.
Wow. That's incredible.
Yeah. And it's fun. I had so much fun making my own watercolor paint. I have to tell you.
I love that.
Out of soil, right? And it was just this question, right? So I got through, I'm teaching the book, right? And I'm like, well, what question do I actually have? What's a real question for me? Well, it's about paint. The first experiment is a little bit about paint. And it's like, well, can I make my own watercolor paint? Because I've been trying to teach myself how to watercolor. And I just go look it up. Oh, well, I can do it this way, or I can do it this way. And then I found this website called For the Love of Soil. And it's these soil scientists, and they're artists, and they make paint out of soil. And it just pulled me in. It's like, oh, that's so cool. I never thought about making paint out of soil. It's all new for me, even though I'm, got my doctorate and, I know stuff. I don't know everything. And I just had a blast. I went on a mountain bike ride, collected my soils, right? Did the work, looked up how do you do it, ordered the little Mueller thing that you have to smush it around with, and ordered, had to get my resin right, and made paint that actually works. So here we go.
Oh, that's so cool. And I'm sure you didn't get it right the first time, right? That's what the kids are going to learn through trying to answer their own questions. It's going to take a couple times, possibly.
Well, and that's the joy of the quest, right? like my paint, the first, you can see one was kind of too sticky. It's really in my little tube here. And then the other one was too dry. It's the red one is just falling out because I didn't put enough moisture in it. So is it perfect? No, I have a lot more to learn about how to make my own paint out of soil. But I'm learning, and I know this now because I'm interested in it. Set me down with, an economics book because I have to take that class. I'm probably not going to be all that interested in it right now.
Right.
So it doesn't excite me. Yeah. So that's the point. That's how to Ratataz something. And that's what I really want to teach kids, and families and parents how to do. Even parents can learn how to Ratataz anything. It's never too late.
Okay, so we have someone asking, I think, to go over what the acronym means again.
Yeah.
You missed it.
So Ratataz is really a method. It's a way of approaching a subject, and it really means to read a little bit about that subject or research, to ask your own questions. So once you read or research, don't answer somebody else's questions about it. Ask your own questions, something that you're really interested in. And then the third step is to test, tinker, dabble, play with some ideas around that question and around that content. And then the fourth step is to actually try to answer your own questions. So now you know a little bit about it. You've played with a little bit of science or whatever, you've tinkered with it a little bit. Can you answer the question? Sometimes the answer is no, can't answer the question. Sometimes the answer is yes. And sometimes it's, I don't know yet. That's okay. All those answers are acceptable. You're going on a question quest at that point. And then Taz, the last piece, is to talk, tell, and dazzle. What I really want is to create a community of people who are sharing their ideas with others. Kids who are like, yeah, I Ratatazed watercolor paints, and this is what I came up with. And I Ratatazed, computer screens, and this is what I came up with. So that Tazzle part is to share it, to have kids share it online. And so that's the process that we're creating. And that's the subscription box series is basically how do you Ratataz, specifically science, because that's my area of expertise, but it's more, I want them to take that and branch it out. So that's what Ratataz stands for: read, ask, test, answer, and tazzle.
And so these boxes that you send, the subscription boxes, they have all of these materials in there. So you have a book, right? In the boxes to give them a chance to read about it. And then you have the opportunity for them to do an experiment. And when you say test, you're not saying like a paper test, no, you have to get answers correct.
Tinkering, so one of the things, another really great book is this book by Daniel Coyle called The Talent Code. And some of the ideas in the Talent Code I've incorporated into the Ratataz boxes. And one of the things is to chunk things down, into individual subject. But the other is to tinker and test. So he's looking at people who are really talented. How does somebody go from novice to master in any sort of, whether it's music, whether it's science, or something, sports, for example? Well, all the great geniuses of those that we would call talented, they tinker with it. So if you ever watched a young musician, they're playing with, I'm going to test this out, and I'm going to test this out. And that's where the test is. It's tinkering. Yeah. It's like, well, what happens if I add this liquid to that? Or what happens if, when I was doing the watercolor paints, it's like, well, I need to add a little more resin. Okay, I need to add a little less. That's the testing. That's the tinkering, dabbling.
And I think so many homeschool parents that are watching are looking for opportunities for their kids to get hands-on with science rather than just reading a textbook and answering questions. So this is an awesome opportunity.
Yeah, and one of the things that is important is that hands-on is really critical here, because you can watch a video about how to make watercolor paint, and you might think, well, because I've watched a video, I know how to do it. But you don't know how to do it unless you do it. We had a phrase when I was a bench scientist, which was, in my hands, I got this result. And so we would get together and talk about different results. It's like, well, in my hands, I got this result. So you have to actually do it in your hands in order to learn what does it feel like to pour a graduated cylinder full of liquid into a beaker. How much volume is that? You could watch a video, but you're not really going to get it.
Yeah.
So I saw a question up there, which was all the materials. Is there a list of materials?
Yes.
Actually, you don't have to buy any of the materials. We are preloading these boxes with all the materials. The only materials you would have to buy are something like, there's one experiment that requires isopropyl alcohol. And so we're not going to ship isopropyl alcohol. We looked into it, but it's pretty regulated. Yeah. But even the distilled water, we're going to give you little bottles of distilled water for your pH experiments, because we need to have pH, we need to have distilled water for those. So right now the kits will come monthly. So we have a trial kit you can buy on the website. And that's the first kit, and it's got a bunch of extra supplies in it. And those supplies we want you to save and, for future experiments. But if you want to sign up for the subscription program, it's every month. A box will come. You'll get all the supplies. You'll get your starter kit first with any additional materials that you're going to need for your kits. Like beakers, we give you a set of 5 beakers. We give a graduated cylinder. We want you to save those. But then all of the other materials are preloaded. We've preloaded test tubes with the right amount of materials in there.
Oh, wow.
We've got little, like one of the experiments is to test for sugars. We got little glucose strips in there.
Oh, that's cool.
And so you don't have to worry about collecting any of the materials. We've done that part for you.
And so the ages, would a family with different, a range of ages, they could all use it, or what would you suggest?
Yeah, so the reader is Lexile scored grades 2 through 5.
Okay.
However, the whole point, and one of the things I'm going to be repeating throughout all of the video series, so each box comes with its own video too. One of the points I want to make very clear is that this is just a launching pad. Any book, any program, any kit you buy is just the starting point, okay? So if you have an older student, they might look at the reader and go, oh, this is for babies. This is really easy. But there's questions in there you can ask that would, all of a sudden they're not going to be able to answer them, right? So what I want to encourage is it is geared for grades 2 through 5. We will have a middle school and a high school series down the road. We don't have that yet. But even if you've got somewhat older kids, if they learn how to Ratataz, they can Ratataz any book, any program. It doesn't have to be a complicated subject or a complicated reader for them to ask complicated questions that they can't answer, and then go research those. And I will give examples of that during the tutorial. But really think about, and this is true for any curriculum you buy, it's just the starting point. Any textbook is just the place where you begin. It's like a diving board or a launching pad for swimmer, right? You're going to dive in and swim, but you've got to start somewhere. Yeah. So that's yeah. So how do you enter the award program? I see that popping up. So
go for it.
So on the website, so if you go to the website, it's www.ratataz.com. There is, if you see on the homepage, there's a link to the awards page. And all you do is fill out a form. And we're going to have this once a year. And you get a year from now to submit your project. And so you'll just fill out the submission form. And then when you're ready with your project, there's a process for just submitting the video. And then I will review the videos, and we'll have, like I said, there's 3 tiers, $1,000, $500, and I think $250. And then we'll expand from there. If we break it down into age ranges and stuff down the road. But right now we just have the one Ratataz award.
That's awesome.
It's pretty easy to enter. Like I said, you don't have to purchase any of our products. You do need you do need to learn how to Ratataz, because I'm going to be looking for kids who are, you can't just pick a science fair project out of a book and do it. Yeah. Because I used to be a science fair judge for years, and I'm going to know that is not the original question. Yeah. I had one kid who asked the question, does dog spit really heal wounds? And I was the judge chairman of that age group. And of course he won, because that was a cool question to ask. Right. He did a really great job answering it. It was his own question.
That is cool.
So, yeah. So, so that's how you get into the award program.
So we have another question. Is there more in real science for teens and chemistry available on the high school level?
No, there's not at this point. We did not continue with the Real Science for Teens series yet. Probably, I'm looking at maybe partnering with some people around that. To create the high school books, it's really pretty labor and resource intensive. Yeah. And we simply just didn't have enough people purchasing our high school chemistry level. There are a number of high school chemistry books out there already that are, very good, like even for physics. I think Paul Hewitt's Conceptual Physics is the book I would recommend for high schoolers. Biology, depending on what your perspective is. I mean, there's good books, there's not so good books. I mean, you just have to sort of look through that content. But I think, if you can teach your younger kids or even your high school kids how to Ratataz, I mean, even if you did a few of these, if a high schooler did a few of these, you can take any book and turn it into a really solid program for your student.
Yeah, and that's the freedom in homeschooling, is the parent has the ability to create the program,
Right. And we want our kids to succeed. I'm personally engaged and interested in getting those kids to solve tomorrow's problems. There's a lot of them, right? Mm-hmm. And, I'm passionate about this. I had my middle son passed away from a childhood disease. And, but that childhood disease could be fixed. I can't fix it, but somebody can fix it. And so then I believe wholeheartedly that the cure for that disease is inside, some first grader right now. It's just a matter of it. Yeah. And that's why I've been so focused and passionate about trying to figure out not just how do I deliver good content to kids, but how do I actually get them to learn and start making those discoveries that we that we need so much. Yeah. So that's kind of where my core passion comes from. But yeah, and that's where Ratataz is it's sort of the synthesis of everything I've been doing for 20 years. It's like, I really think this will work. And we've have evidence. We did this little test run this summer when the coronavirus broke out. And it was phenomenal. I mean, we had one little girl who was super shy, was afraid to ask questions. She was very reserved. And then she did her final project and put a video up. And she said, I had the most fun I've ever had in a summer. Aww. And now I can ask questions like the boys.
Wow.
She was confident. She's like, oh, I can do this. So it's phenomenal. And that's the kind of stuff that just moves me, right?
Yeah.
So, for a high school student, I don't have short answers. I don't have more of the chemistry. At some point, maybe we will be able to develop that. But yeah, buy my Ratataz kits and the current Real Science for Kids, and we'll see if we can partner with somebody to get those last books done for you guys, because I would love to do more high school materials.
So I do have a couple more questions for you. What do you see as the biggest challenge when it comes to teaching science right now? Or STEAM, actually?
Well, I think science, and it was true back when I was homeschooling, I think a lot of people are intimidated by science. It's a subject that maybe they didn't feel very comfortable with when they were in school. So they maybe tend to rely on the textbook publishers or the online programs to teach the science to their kids. And so there's a fear factor for many parents. Even if you've got, one or both partners in the relation, parents able to understand some science, I think there's still a fear around that. Yeah. And it's really, that's why the Ratataz program is not, you don't need to have a PhD to teach your kids. In fact, I'm really wanting parents to take a step back and be just the graduate advisor, because I want to take that fear off the table. You're not required to answer your kids' questions. You're not even required to know what they're doing. Just be engaged with them, and you'll learn along the way. And then I think the other big problem around science is that there's a lot of confusion around, like, what's a fact, what's a theory, what is good science, what is not so good science, what's pseudoscience, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that can be very confusing. You go, you maybe even look up some sort of diet information. It's like, oh, over here, there's all this, I'm constantly kind of looking to biohack my own nutrition because I do, some athletics, and it can be very confusing. But I also want to take the fear away around that. The whole idea behind Ratatazing something is empowering not just the kids, but you to know you can go dig, as long as you're not fixated on this is the right answer and everything else is wrong. If you're in this exploratory mode and really consider it a quest, you will find the right answers. Yeah. Knowing what good sources are, primary, secondary, tertiary, I'll teach that in the series.
Okay.
You need to know what good sources are. But you can look, you could look at, I can look at a bad source and know, okay, this is true, but the rest of this is not,
Right.
So but having that confidence to know you can sift through scientific information enough to make good decisions for your, and same with kids. So I think those are the two big sort of obstacles to teaching science. And hopefully Real Science for Kids and the Ratataz program, I want to take those fears off the table.
Well, I think those watching right now are just really excited about these boxes. They're excited about this opportunity to have their child enter your contest. So just thank you so much for everything that you've done and everything that you've shared today. It's been an absolute pleasure. Can you share with us one more time where we can stay up to date with all the Ratataz happenings?
Right. So we do have a Facebook page. It's hashtag Ratatazle. Because that's that's where we share, right? So the Tazzle point part we spelled out for you guys. So that's where we're going to share more information about Ratataz. We do have our website up finally. It's www.ratataz.com. Right now we have the trial box available and the first subscription series available, but we will have, so again, just to make sure everybody understands the boxes are sequenced for you. I want to walk through the series in a particular order, at least initially. And then once I'm comfortable, they have that foundation, there will be options to buy, say, more biology or more geology or more astronomy. Right now, we have just the chemistry box, and that we start you off with 5 chemistry, and then we'll move to biology.
All right.
But yeah, go to the website, go to our Facebook page. And I think we even have an Instagram account. So yeah, so that's where you can find out all about the program. And if you have any questions, just contact us. You can contact us at, I believe office@ratataz.com.
Okay.
Is another way to
contact
us.
Well, thank you. We just appreciate taking the time out to join us today and share about Ratataz. It's so exciting. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you for joining us. And if you're new to homeschooling, go and check out the homeschoolingprimer.com and get free information for your homeschooling journey. And if you are looking for a curriculum, you can head over to schoolhouseteachers.com, and we have an awesome sale going on, the quarterly membership. You can use the promo code support right now and get a really good deal. So thank you so much for tuning in, and we will see you next time.